What up, y'all? It's your hometown hero, the real Adam Coleman. Y'all know what it is, man. We back at it one more again. I got my man Alex Mcelroy in the building. What's happening with you, bro?
Hey, how you doing? I'm glad to be here, and it's a lot happening, but we don't get into that.
Okay, I understand, bro. I understand.
Nothing bad, just a lot.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, man. So we got man, we got some folks in the chat already, man. We got Nate 2D2 in the building. We got Nate 2D2 is always in the building. For those who don't know, I refer to him as the omnipresent Nate 2D2. You know what I'm saying? Because he manages to be in all live streams at all times. Like he is the internet. You know what I'm saying? It's like kind of a pantheist type of thing. Like he is the internet. You know what I'm saying? He just manifests, at different times and different chats and whatever. So anyway, we got Nate D2 in the building. I always messing with him, man. Shotty Mills in the building. You know what I'm saying? My man, we got my man Richly Redeemed. You know what I'm saying? I think that might be a newcomer to the live stream. I don't recognize that name right there. So if so, welcome. If not, forgive me for not recognizing that name before. Tyler Lott, what's happening with you? Phil Fox. Ryan Robinson, but going by my old name, Scott Lane. You know what I'm saying? That's somebody who's known me for a while, probably. You know what I mean? So yeah, man. So what we doing right now, man? We got some. We have an interesting live stream, I think. You know what I'm saying? So what we doing right now, bro?
Man, trying to clarify some things. Let's just say it like that.
Okay, yeah. That's a good way to put it. All right. So, for anybody who's looking at the thumbnail, it's pretty obvious. We're dealing with Kevin Wesley. Many people, I guess, initially knew him as ex-pastor Kevin Wesley, but he kind of dropped that, whole ex-pastor thing because it was clearly an overstatement. You know what I'm saying? I think he got some pushback on the legitimacy of his ex-pastor claim, and he wisely dropped that from his kind of shtick, if you will. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what he was going off of. But this guy, he blew up off a YouTube video where he's kind of ranting about the Bible, Christianity, church, and all this kind of stuff, and a lot of people latched on to it, and he's been putting out pseudo scholarship ever since. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what he markets in. You know what I mean? So actually, interestingly enough. I'm trying to be cool, but listen, this dude has been lying to people for a long time, man, and it's frustrating because it's like there's nobody holding this guy accountable, man. Like, I mean, he gets away with saying anything, just the most nonsensical stuff. And so, we're gonna try to take some time and to kind of break down the foolery. And it's nothing personal. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know how it is, man. It's nothing personal. But what I have noticed in the clips that we're about to take a look at, he employs certain techniques that are very common, with him and other pseudo scholars. You know what I'm saying? It just lapses in logic and reasoning. And so we want to be able to use this as a teaching tool so we can help people identify some of these, fallacies and so on and so forth. So if you come across somebody using this kind of reasoning, you'll be able to, respond. So this is not just this is not a bash, Kevin Wesley fest. I mean, that's not what this is. But he's been speaking some nonsense, so we want to help people identify the nonsense and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Is that you typing? I think you might be typing in the background. I'm gonna be that. But, that's all good. It's all good. Matter of fact, actually, I'm gonna turn it over to you. You're saying before we.
Go ahead.
Copy. I'm gonna look at that.
Yeah. So I don't even know where to start. So let me just say this real quick. There's a lot of accusations as far as, and you can, and this is all public record. So I'm not just making these things up or throwing flames. One of his co-business partners who started Be the Evolution with him has made some very public things about shady business practices and kind of what he says he's about and what he's really about. So the irony of that whole thing is that that's his criticism of the church, or at least one of his criticisms of the church, is that the pastors just want to take the money. The church just wants to take the money. And yeah, can y'all hear me? And that they just take the money and they don't use it for the things that they should be using it for. And so he started out by saying, I just want to get the money. Whatever you give me, I'm gonna give it to the homeless, or I'm gonna feed the hungry. He said I want to stop world hunger and all that type of stuff. And so those being his stated goals, turns out that hasn't been what he's been about, as well as claiming that he had a nonprofit and public record. You can go look at it and see he doesn't. He's actually been denied twice. Last one I saw was 2018. I don't know if he reapplied. I doubt it. But then he's living in this huge mansion. He had previously said, if you catch me living in a mansion, you can call me a false prophet. So I guess we got the license. A lot of those types of things. And I don't want to spend too much time on that part of it. I just want to say it's very hypocritical to call the church hypocritical and then be hypocritical as well. And I think we'll get into, some of the underlying reasons of what he was. It always ends in one of two ways: money and sex. And so we'll get there. Eventually.
Yeah.
But as you know, y'all know, I have huge issues, not with him, but with anybody when logic, I'm very logical and things have to make sense, and you have to obey certain rules of logic to get to your conclusion. That's not my rule. That's just the way thinking works, proper thinking. So, Adam, if you want to drop the clip or whatever you want to say, and then
just real quick. I mean, quite frankly, it's wild because he actually did a response to one of my videos. It's been a couple of years ago, and like the next week, I was down at the True Summit. Shout out to Isaiah Robertson. And on the way back to the True Summit, my luggage was stolen, and I lost the camera. You know what I'm saying? Somebody stole my camera, and I never got a chance to do a response to that Kevin Wesley video. And honestly, I just flat out forgot about it. So I'm actually might have to go dig in the archives and find that video and do a response. But here's the thing: I say all the time, right, that you can't build a strong community on a foundation of weak ideas. You know what I'm saying? I say that all the time. And so for me, yes, my primary, the essential focus of apologetics is preaching the gospel, and in so much as apologetics is instrumental in that, in terms of preaching the gospel and discipleship. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm all about. In addition to that, when you're bringing it into the day to day, I also care about people in my community thinking rightly. I'm saying because I want to see us do better as a community. Right. And the fact of the matter is if you have people out here who have large platforms and are perpetuating bad thinking in our community. And by bad thinking, I don't mean things I just disagree with. I'm talking about things that are literally illogical, not just stuff that doesn't make sense to me or things that I disagree with. No, things that fall outside of being reasonable. You know what I'm saying? And there's principles or possible. Yeah, there you go. Very interesting. You know what I'm saying? But shout out to Dwayne Atkinson. Haven't seen him out here in a while, man. Shout out to the brother. That's what's up. Mm-hmm. But in so much as people are, perpetuating bad thinking in our community, I have a problem with that. You know what I'm saying? So we'll get into that, particularly in regards to we'll get into relationships and all that kind of stuff. So I guess we'll go ahead and launch it to the clip. And so here's the thing. There's a new feature on StreamYard that helps me to share videos a different way. And I've never tried it before. And I have no idea if y'all are going to be able to hear this audio once I hit this play button. So if you hear the audio, but I hit this play button, then just give me a 1 in the chat to make sure that y'all hear me. And if you don't hear the video, hit a 2. And that way I know to stop it, and I'll just kind of rewrite it and do the way that I normally do it. So y'all can just kind of help me out a little bit in the chat or whatever. So shout out to the mods too. Thank y'all for y'all help already, man. Appreciate it. All right, so we're going to launch it. So this is an interview. Kevin Wesley was interviewed fairly recently. I think it was just a few days ago, actually, this first one. And he's going to be talking about, what caused him to first, wake up, and all that sort of thing. So, let's go ahead and see what's popping. All right, let's see what's popping. And Alex, if you want to, we can chop it up where we pause. If you come across something that he says something you want to stop and address it, that's how we'll run it. All right, here we go.
To be honest, when you're a pastor, for you to, what woke you up? What clicked?
I needed evidence, facts. You know what I mean? I needed to be able to, I found out, I looked at it like this. There are many religions, right? And everyone believes wholly in their religion, right? So I'm talking to other people of other religions, trying to explain to them why they should believe in my religion. Mm-hmm. So I tell them about a testimony. This is what we all do as believers, right? I believe this God is real because I was going through this, or I used to be this type of person, or I was sick and A difference came once I put my faith in this belief. And then they say, well, I did the same thing with Krishna, or the same thing happened with me with Allah. Well, but I know mine is real because I've met many people who was going down the wrong road. And when I gave this information to them and literature to them, I led them to Christ, their life changed. And somebody will say, well, I led somebody to Allah. I took them to the mosque and they still changed. So wait a second. If we all believe in our religions for the same reasons, what's one thing that we can say differently from all of them? There's nothing.
I'm gonna stop right there. I want to address that point. Matter of fact, if you want to, you can jump in first, and I was gonna share a slide and get it in. So you want to go there first, man? Oh, I think you might be muted, or maybe did I mute you? Or
I was trying to wait because if we pause I could literally pause every 30 seconds. So I'm trying to let it run. But no, go ahead. All
right, cool. All right, well, let me just get a couple bars in here right quick, right? Now, what he's talking about so far, the question he was asked is, I can remove this right now. The question that he was asked is like, what woke you up? You know what I'm saying? Let me check and see where did I leave off at.
So here's what I found
wrong.
Let's see, let me make sure I get my time here. Okay. 1746. All right. So he said, what woke you up? And his response to that is that, he basically was, looking for evidence, and he thought about this notion that, you're trying to convince somebody that your religion is the way, you're going to tell your testimony, essentially, something that God did for you or somebody else. And then that's supposed to be, evidence of your religion. And, basically he's saying that everybody else can do the same thing. So, you're back to square one in terms of differentiating between which worldview, really has an advantage over the other. Like, how do you know the truth if everybody can make the same claims? And he's saying that there's nothing that you can do to break that tie, if you will, Right. And that was interesting is that, even before he gets there, or as he's making that point, he makes a statement. He said, yeah, telling your testimony, blah, blah, blah. This is what we all do. Now, I thought what was interesting is that might be what you do, right? You may not have a developed in your discipleship to the point where you could not give evidence for what you were claiming to believe beyond your personal testimony. That might be what you do, right? And there may be various other Christians for which that is true, but nevertheless, that's not a reflection of the biblical worldview itself. You know what I'm saying? There are various different evidences that we could bring to the table. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that struck me as he said that is that I think far too often we have people who they make waves by calling themselves like the ex-Christian or the ex-pastor, or if you're in a conversation with somebody, they're all like, oh yeah, I used to go to church. You know what I mean? And that's what's like, ooh, like, as if you have some sort of inside track on why Christianity is false. And the fact of the matter is, time and time again, you engage these folks and they know nothing about Christianity itself. They may have gone to church, but they know hardly nothing about theology. They know nothing about the philosophical, supports for the biblical worldview, all this and the third. They had a very underdeveloped understanding of the biblical worldview, and they attended church. And then when they dipped out for, whatever reason, now they think they got all this insight. Oh yeah, I used to be a Christian. You know what I'm saying? I know what's up. No, you didn't. You didn't know what was up in the beginning in the first place. And so when Kevin Wesley makes statements like that, when he says like, yo, yeah, this is what we do, you just give me your testimony. So what you're telling me is you were not aware of the various different defenses that we can give for the biblical worldview, because you thought that that's all you had in your bag was these testimony, your testimony. Right. And that's clearly not true. So let me just share my screen right quick. I don't know what's going to happen to the video because I got to, let's see what happens.
Hold on, are you playing a video again?
No. I'm just going to share a slide right quick.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let me just share the slide. I think that you can see that. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah. So let me go share the slide. Oh, where am I at?
Over.
Probably would help if I go to slideshow, wouldn't it? I'm struggling here. Okay, so now here's the thing. I'm not diminishing personal testimony, right? Depending on the situation, your personal testimony can be impactful for somebody. If you have somebody who's a substance abuser or something like that, and God delivered you from that, and you share that with them, for them, that might be what they need at that time, right? This is not just a intellectual pursuit. When it comes to the biblical worldview. I was just talking about this the other night when I was on Phil Fox's channel on Sunday. We're dealing with the whole person, right? So there are times where your personal testimony or talking about something that God has helped you with on an emotional level, those things can be impactful with other people. So I want to be clear in saying I disagree with Kevin Wesley. Those things can be effective in one way or another. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, my whole point is that's not all we have in our bag, right? I talked about this the other day. When you sit back and look at the universe and just reality as it actually is, the human experience. There are all sorts of things that arise in areas of like cosmology, for example, the origins of the universe, what the world consists of, physical universe consists of, metaphysics. I'm thinking about things like what actually exists and what's the nature of them. Axiology. That's just a fancy way of talking about like values, i.e., moral values, human values, kind of to add some teeth to it. Rationality, the ability that we have to reason. We have a will. Some people for theological reasons may not like the term free will, so we can just say intentions, right? We can talk about qualia, the first person experience, self-concept, teleology, which we'll get back to later. But function and purpose in the world. All these different things afford us opportunities to give different arguments for the existence of God and Christianity, because we can talk about the Kalam cosmological argument. We can talk about the moral argument. We can talk about the argument from reason. We can talk about the fine-tuning of the universe. We can talk about the argument from mathematics. We can talk about the ontological argument, right? Yeah. We can talk about all those things, you know what I'm saying? And we can talk about the argument for the resurrection, which is, gives us historical grounds to affirm the central claim of Christianity, right? Yeah. We have all these arguments. I'm saying there's not just, okay, well, I think this way. No, we can show you arguments, all up and down the Tru-ID channel. You know what I'm saying? We have sound deductive arguments, inductive arguments that are grounded in solid, that are grounded logically. I'll just put it that way. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Christianity is not the dumb man's religion, and it's not on equal footing with other worldviews. No, we have arguments for what it is that we affirm. And if he's under the impression that all we got or all he had, was personal testimony, then he's telling me that he really wasn't, well versed in the biblical worldview. He really wasn't well versed in Christianity. And that was a red flag already for me.
Absolutely. And I second all that. And I was going to get into a lot of those, not in a exhaustive manner. And like I said, same on my channel, those are the things that I give videos on and do videos on and do interviews on, because I don't want to deal with, we have to deal with this. We have to combat this, but I don't want to always be fighting the nonsense. I want to give the reality. And so even last night, the video I dropped on why we can trust the words of Jesus, and once again, deductively reasoned arguments. So I don't know if I can share this or you can share my slide.
I think you would have to share from your end, but I can.
Okay.
Yeah, you can share. Yeah, once you put share, it should allow me to bring it up. And while you're looking for that, listen, I got this book right here. Shout out to my man, Doug Brotice. You know what I'm saying? I interviewed him about this time last year. You know what I'm saying? His whole book on Christian apologetics, right? We got volumes and volumes of evidences for the biblical worldview. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like this is not no small junk right here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's got all kind of you drop this on your toe. I feel sorry for you. It's gonna hurt. You know what I mean? Like we got volumes upon volumes of not just people giving opinions, but well-reasoned defenses for the biblical worldview, man.
And can everybody see this? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, my bad. I hadn't hit the button, but
okay. Yeah. That was one of the things that I was thinking about as well. As far as testimony is a piece of the puzzle, and I really don't think it is the biggest piece, because even those can be subjective. And I'm not talking about necessarily within Christian worldview. I'm talking about in any type of. Oh wait, let me go back. Can you go back one? I don't know. It's not letting me go back.
Actually, I can't control it from here. You'd have to go into PowerPoint and control it that way. It sounds like it's beeping at you.
Mm-hmm. All right, it's not.
I tell you what, you want to email it to me right now?
Yeah, I did. I already sent it to you. All right, let me just. I'll just talk.
Okay, I'll bring it up. Yeah, go for it. I'll bring it up while you're talking.
he'll say stuff, and a lot of this language is really esoteric and it's very new age spirituality, which we can get into why that's more actually problematic, especially when you want to claim you're leaving Christianity to espouse these types of notions. So your testimony is a piece of the puzzle, but it's not propositional, and that's what the one slide I was going to pull up. He says he'll say things like, we just have this ability. He says through a hug you can raise someone's vibration, and you know all this type of language is very new age and very ungrounded, and it's not rooted in anything. And so misconstruing the nature of God and the purpose of God is problematic. God does not exist in order for us to heal people or to bring someone's energy up. So like you were saying, a lot of times when I watch these different things, it's not even that they're anti-Christian or against religion or any of those things. That's its own thing. But you don't even know what you're against, and you don't even know what God is for. So that's not the purpose or the telos for why God exists or why he wants us to exist. And if you don't understand that, and this is why I talk so much about purpose, if you don't understand the purpose for something, abuse is inevitable. Dr. Miles Monroe said this.
Oh, say it again. Yeah, you say it again.
Whenever purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable.
Interesting.
So when you don't know, and I give this example sometimes of people where, my daughter's toy needed some batteries. So I took a butter knife. Hey, every dad out there, we done this, right? You took a butter knife, you would try to unscrew that thing. It probably slipped out several times, and it's not ergonomically designed for that specific task. A screwdriver is designed for that task. Now, could you do it? Yeah, you can do it, but that's not what it's designed for. And so there's certain things, even about your own life, about your own design, that you can do certain things, but that's not the design or the purpose for which you were created. And so misunderstanding design or purpose or telos will almost always lead you to a flawed understanding of identity, of meaning, of morality, of all these other things that are extrapolated from that initial understanding of purpose. So like if y'all see on the screen right now, just do that first slide. So the word proposition.
Okay, yeah.
So proposition, here, let me get back.
Yeah, I'm controlling it from my end now. So I got it on the word proposition. Just let me know if you want me to go to another slide.
Yeah, we're good. So the meaning of a declarative sentence where meaning is understood to be a non-linguistic entity, which is shared by all sentences with the same meaning or equivalently. So a proposition is the non-linguistic barrier of truth or falsity, which makes any sentence that expresses it either true or false. Now, a lot of times we've been on here and we've topped up the law of non-contradiction, and two opposing propositions cannot both be true in the same time and space, right? Well, by denying the objective propositions contained or that ground Christianity, you are also affirming other propositions. Both of those propositions can't be true. So as we go further, we can assess, are his propositions true? Because as Adam laid out, and as we'll continue to lay out, we're not making a claim by blind faith. We're not saying this is just what we choose. This is the one we pick, right? You pick Islam, we pick this. That's not that. And, when on BK's channel, we did a whole breakdown of the difference between Christianity and Islam. So as we play the rest of the clip, just think about, and when you talk to other people, just assess the fact that they're not just disagreeing with you. They're disagreeing with a proposition, which is a statement that has to be either true or false.
Right, exactly. Cool. Yeah. So I'm gonna get back in the video because y'all know how I get down, man. I can go on forever, but I mean, I do want to get the rest of the video. So yeah, that's dope, man. That's dope. And I want y'all to keep what he's saying in mind. Like this is not just this is not a personal attack. This is not just about like, oh, we hate Kevin Wesley. No, we're evaluating the propositions that this man is putting forward. The question is, do they hold weight or not? That's the question. So all right, cool. So let me bring up the rest of the video. Oops. All right, cool. There we go.
Who strongly believe in Jesus say that they've healed people or seen people healed. The same with every other religion. I feel like this. We all have an ability to tap into these type of things, right? Mm-hmm. this is not because of religion. This is because we just have this ability, right? Through hugging each other, we can raise each other's vibration, thus healing them, like literally healing them from ailments. This is scientifically proven that through opening up and hugging someone, you can raise their vibration and heal them. So we can heal each other through love, man. Now, if you believe that that's through a religion, here's what happens. You say, well, if I pray to my new conduit to reach this same power outside, a conduit is something outside of yourself that you use to reach a higher energy or God or whatever. So say a cross. You already have access to all the power inside of you, which is hope, courage, confidence, faith. But if you feel fear, in order to summon confidence, you will kiss your cross. The cross is just wood or gold or silver or whatever it's made. It's nothing, man. It's an agreed upon symbol to represent a religion. That's it. It's not really anything. But a person will put so much love and faith in it that if they wear it, they'll feel more confident. It's because they made the cross the conduit to their confidence. Right? This is exactly what happens. That's why you alter your state of mind when you give your energy to something. Notice I said altar, right? Whenever you're doing any type of ritual, in any type of ritual, they have altars, right? An altar. That altar is the entrance or exit to the spiritual realm, right? They put all their little things on their altar. Your eyes are your altar, right? This is your physical realm, everything you can touch, and your mind is your spiritual realm.
I think you're muted.
I said, hold on, I got to pause it right there. I got to get this in real quick, and then we'll get back to the video. But I got to just share this right quick, right? Now, again, this is not trying to take a jab. I guess I don't really have to say it over and over again. I think people get it by now. But I do want people to be able to come away from this video and identify certain strategies and techniques that people like Kevin Wesley will use to try to make their case. You know, I mean, the ones that are particularly fallacious, right? So I think actually what we have in our hands is a new fallacy. I'm saying we're going to introduce a new fallacy right here on the Tru-ID podcast. Y'all ready for this? Y'all ready? You know what I'm saying? Okay, here we go. Let me get to my slides very quick. We're going to introduce a brand new fallacy, fam. Oh, let me remove this from the there we go. Hot off the presses. You know what I'm saying? We need to add this to the philosophical you know what I'm saying? Canon and all that. All right, am I on the wrong one? I think I'm on the wrong one. I think I'm showing your PowerPoint back. Oh, okay, no,
not yours.
All right, cool. All right, okay, how do I get to it? Oh, there we go. All right, here we go. I'll come back to that in a minute. All right, so you know we've talked about in the past. I've talked about the equivocation fallacy, right? Very simple. The equivocation fallacy occurs when the key term or phrase in an argument is used in an ambiguous way with one meaning in one portion of the argument and then another meaning in another portion of the argument. So basically, it's kind of like a sleight of hand where somebody's using a word that can have various different meanings. And on the beginning of the argument, they're using it in one sense, and then they're using it in a different sense later on to try to make their points. They're trying to slip in the conclusion they want you to come to by, using a word in that kind of a way, right? You're kind of real flimsy with it. Now, I think we have is what I'm calling the homophone fallacy. I think this is a brand new fallacy right here, y'all. The homophone fallacy, right? A homophone is where you got two words that, sound the same, they may have the same spelling and so forth, but they have different meanings, right? So the homophone fallacy occurs when a key word in an argument is used interchangeably with one or more other words that have a similar sound and or spelling, but different meanings, have different meanings, right? So if you listen to what he just said a second ago, this man said, he's just talking about how you can alter things. You can alter your reality. You can alter yourself, alter this, right? Alter this, alter that. But he's using two different words for the word alter. You know what I'm saying? At first, he's like, he's talking about alter in the sense you can make something different without changing into something else or whatever. Now, mind you, that's alter, A-L-T-E-R, right? And then he starts talking about how in worship, you go to the altar, but that's A-L-T-A-R, right? And altar in that sense. Now, I'm pulling both of these definitions from Webster's dictionary. Usually a raised structure or place in which sacrifices are offered or incense is burned and worship, often used figuratively to describe a thing giving great or undue precedence or value, especially at the cost of something. But so if somebody says like you sacrifice your integrity on the altar of greed or something like that, that's kind of like that figurative use, right? But anyway, so he's using the word alter And at first, if you listen to what he said, he says, he's talking about altering things like yourself or your reality or whatever. And he's using it in the sense of ALTER, but then he smuggles in this other word that sounds the same, but it's ALTAR to try to make this to make it the connection between what he's saying and what he believes to be how people use things to have this conduit, as he says, to some higher spiritual plane or spirituality or whatever. But I said that to say, watch out for the homophone fallacy, because cats do this all the time. I couldn't find the clip, but there's another video where he's talking about the disciples, Jesus' disciples. Disciple is spelled DISC. Was it IPLES? You know what I'm saying? And he says, yeah, you got to think about it. Disc IPL. You know what I mean? He separates it, and he's like, yeah. And then he goes from he takes that first part of disciple. He's like, yeah, so it's disc, right? And he starts talking about the sun disc, as in like Amun Ra and or Akhenaten or whatever. You know, which is disc DISK. I might have to find that clip. But again, y'all know what it is, man. Cats do this all the time. They'll take two words that sound the same, and because they sound the same, they make the precept. They start getting into that homophone fallacy, where they're trying to make their case based on the similarity of a word being spelled or sound the same. Watch out for the homophone fallacy.
And what's even funnier about that is disciple and discipleship are not biblical words.
True.
Those are words that are perfectly common and were perfectly common in Greece and other places. Disciple means a student of. It's not only a biblical word. So he's trying to make something spiritual that it's not really spiritual. They just use it to describe the relationship that Jesus had with these men of God. So when you started out by saying you don't really even understand, former pastor, the core tenets or the core principles, you don't, because you don't even understand the basic words and which words are purely theological or purely biblical, and which words are just words that people use all the time, like an apprentice. That's the same type of thing. I'm gonna say two things, and then there's a whole thing I want to say, and I don't even know if we'll get through the rest of the clip, but y'all get the idea. So even this is one problem also with our terminology, and I've been talking a lot about proper hermeneutics, and I released a plan on that on the Bible app, and talking about East and West cultures and stuff like that. The word church in the Bible is the word ecclesia, and it always refers to a group of people. So here's part of the problem. When if I say are you coming to church on Sunday? Paul and Peter would be very confused by that question. And so part of the problem is in our westernized culture, our terminology is not quite right. And this is maybe that's the church's fault. It doesn't excuse him, but I'm just saying our terminology, because the people you don't leave, the building you can leave, or this pastor you can leave, or this particular church you can leave, but that's not really what the church is. So once again, that's a whole nother thing. I meant to do a blog on this, which I've just been busy. I'll do it one day, but and there was something else, but I want to just let me just lay out a couple of things that not just him, a lot of these new age.
Did you want me to play the clip? Is that what you're saying? Or
no. I'm gonna lay this out, and then y'all will see kind of he'll keep going on. He's not gonna say anything new. It's more the same. So here's the problem. He'll talk about you can channel. You hear this terminology right a lot. We can channel energies. You can channel the energy. You can raise energy, right? So let's step back and take this for what it is. That nebulous kind of talk sounds real deep, but it cleverly masks some embedded delusions in that type of thing. So it's no different than the name it, claim it folks. If we're going to be honest, we're not giving anybody a pass.
Right.
That's wrong too. They're wrong too, right? So the reality is God set up the world in an orderly fashion. So Adam, you were talking about the cosmological and teleological. Y'all know I've had Hugh Ross and Fazal Rana on here on my channel, and from a biological point of view and from an astrophysical point of view, showing that this is reality, scientific reality. Okay, so from the universe to the macro level, but once you completely disavow God, you actually end up cutting the ground out from under you. And see, this is you talk about that sleight of hand. This is what atheists do this, naturalists do this, new age spirituality, they all do this in some form or fashion. And I just want us all to be able to recognize it quickly. That's why we do these things. So without God, science isn't even possible because reasoning isn't possible, or at least we shouldn't trust it. If you trust your logic and reasoning capabilities to blind evolutionary forces, that results in a level of determinism to where we're no longer responsible for the conclusions we reach. All right. You'll see, like, when you strip it away, now you're simply biologically predetermined. You're a moist robot, as Frank Turek says. Right. Let's keep it going. Therefore, when someone from this type of worldview denounces God, did they say that out of their own volition, or were they predetermined or programmed to say it? You see the problem that comes up. So if they once again, they have to pick one of those two propositions because they're mutually exclusive. So if they're predetermined or evolutionarily inclined to come to that conclusion, then we can't trust it as a propositional fact. Or if they say they arrived at that understanding of their own volition, like Wesley does, well, now you've risen above your own standard. So like Frank says, you're stealing from God to argue against him. You're sitting in the lap of God to slap him in the face.
Yeah, it's a fact.
You got to pick a choice, right? So in essence, they have no epistemic warrant. That basically epistemology is how you come to know something. They have no epistemic warrant for arriving at their position, even if their position was correct. Even if their position is correct, you have to be able to justify from your worldview how you logically and consistently, without violating any kind of philosophical rules of logic, arrived at that position legitimately. And you can't. And so meaning, based on the logical ramifications of a godless worldview, you don't have the internal structure in such a system to know, this is epistemology, what you claim to know. So very true, you can't have it both ways. And then the last part I'll say on this is, if you start claiming spirituality without grounding it in God, it's either a sham or it's demonic. So I would put this in the sham category, but it's either a sham or it's demonic, because if you're going to acknowledge the spiritual realm and not ground it in God, then those are the only two options left. But see, this is the problem. Another problem. There's a lot of problems.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of. Yeah, I was going to put some in here.
You mentioned the metaphysical part, right? Mm-hmm. In metaphysical reality, any metaphysical reality has to be rooted in something permanent that exists in that metaphysical realm. So if you don't believe in God, you can't justify where these energies even come from, even if they were real, which I don't really believe. So they can't be self-referential. When you mention equivocation, the fallacy of that fallacy is necessary to state. Primarily, there's three primary laws of logic: the law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle, and the law of identity. Now, the law of identity is really the simplest one, but the reason we have to state it is because of what you said. Because the fallacy of equivocation violates it. The law of identity basically says A equals A. That sounds like, well, of course it does. But when you do the equivocation, that's why we need to state it explicitly, because people do what you just described. So these ideas can't be self-referential. They can't refer to themselves as the reason for their own existence. They can't be the product of evolution, because we're talking about metaphysical, which is ironic because his tagline is "Be the evolution." And then they also have to have an ontic point of reference. So there's epistemology, ontology, and I know we've done a lot on this. Ontology is an actual. It is what is, right? We're not talking about how we know or how you came to know. We're talking about what is there to know. The actual thing that exists. So when you detach energies and spirituality and all this stuff from an ontic point of reference that is above us or outside of us, which to me could only be God, now it's floating in midair. It's not attached to anything. It's just an idea you had. It's very subjective and very nebulous and very ungrounded. So it has to be attached to something or someone actual. Another big term, the noetic structure is disrupted. And noetic structure just basically means, in order for me to call an apple red has to be a thing that exists. And I have to have knowledge of that before I can say what something is red. That's an easy example. So break it down. If somebody doesn't have step 1, you can't just jump to step 5. That's illegitimate. And I don't care what Christian, atheist, whoever, any scholarly philosopher will tell you, you can't do that. He could not make these claims, even with an atheist in any scholarly circle. And that's the thing that we all need to realize, that this don't fly except on the internet.
No, exactly right. No, I'm a little bit of echo, so like we'll mute each other or mute ourselves when others talking. No, I'm doing the same thing on my end. It just started, but I wanted to add to what you just said.
Go ahead.
Matter of fact, let me bring up my slides again because you hit on something I wanted to touch on anyway. All right, give me 1 second here, y'all. Okay, so this is just real quick, the kind of a quick and easy model because Alex has referred to worldviews a couple of times here, and I just kind of want to give people some tools and kind of how to think through this here. So when you think about a worldview, it's kind of like exactly how it sounds. It's the lens through which you see the world, or a different way you can look at it. It's like a puzzle, and when you put that puzzle together, it's like the big picture, that you see in terms of reality as a whole. And each of those pieces of the puzzle are like the things that you believe to be true about the world, things that you believe to actually exist, and so on and so forth. So that's like all together. You put those pieces all together. That's your worldview. And so some of the major pieces that all worldviews are gonna have is gonna be something to do with metaphysics. That's just a fancy way of talking about what exists and kind of what's the nature of it. You know what I'm saying? Does God exist? Do moral values exist and things like that? Like what's the nitty gritty of reality? That's kind of what metaphysics is about. You're going to have anthropology. Shout out to Dwayne Atkinson. We got a couple more of these ologies in here, but anthropology, you're talking about what is man? Who am I? What is man? What are we here for? That's where you get those questions, right? Knowledge. You were talking about a minute ago, Alex, with epistemology, right? What do you know and how do we know it? Or what is knowledge rather, and how do we know what we know? So you're gonna have that component of your worldview, and you also have to have something about ethics. What is your account of what's right, wrong, good or bad? What does your worldview have to say about those questions? And then lastly, I'm going to use kind of a religious leaning term, but you're going to have something about salvation. Now, even if you're not, even if you don't hold to a religion of any sort, even if you're a straight up atheist, we're going to think about questions like, what's wrong with the world in terms of suffering in the world and evil in the world, and what's the answer to it? That's kind of what we're talking about. What's the problem and what's the answer to the problem, of the human predicament? That's kind of what I mean by salvation there. And depending on your worldview, people are going to give different answers to what they believe to be the problem. So, for example, a second ago, Kevin Wesley is talking about like, oh yeah, well, if you just channel your energy through these conduits, you can elevate, you can be better, you can do this, you can do that, or if you're talking about his moniker, be the evolution, right? That's his catchphrase. Now, if you're supposed to be the evolution, that assumes two things. That assumes that there's something to improve to, as in like a better state. And also it assumes that there's something from which you ought to evolve. So there's a place where you shouldn't be, and there's a place where you should be evolving to. But that's an assumption that can't be supported, I would argue, on his worldview. Maybe we'll come back to that. But with all these different pieces, at the end of the day, two big chunks that you want to add to it is what's called, I'm going to say, is correspondence. I'm talking about truth, meaning that which corresponds to reality. Your worldview should correspond to the world as it actually is. And you also want to think about coherence, meaning the pieces of your worldview should fit together and not clash such that, they don't work with one another. If you find that the pieces of your worldview are clashing, as in they don't mix, they don't fit together well, that's a red flag that you have something that's wrong with your worldview. Now I said all that to say is that he's making worldview claims, and just a little tidbit here. Again, I want you to have in mind when you're dealing with people. I'm gonna take this off the screen here. When you're dealing with people, whether it be in conversation or some of these folks who be on the internet or whatever, you have to keep in mind that you're often going to run into two types of people. You're going to run into people who are underdeveloped in terms of how they've thought through their own worldview, or their worldview itself is underdeveloped, right? And a telltale sign that either you're dealing with somebody who is underdeveloped in terms of how they've thought through their worldview, or there's somebody who just holds to an underdeveloped worldview, is they make assumptions that their worldview can't account for, and they just kind of presuppose certain things. You know what I'm saying? They presuppose that morality, is objective. That there is a right, wrong, good, and bad. They presuppose, like Alex was talking about, they presuppose that we have rational faculties. You know what I'm saying? And they don't, they don't realize that, hey, if you take God out of the picture, then you're stripping away an essential aspect of what we need in order to even have rational faculties. Because you're right. If all that exists is a natural world, right? And everything kind of just popped off 4 billion years ago with the Big Bang, and you just have a domino effect of physical matter bumping into physical matter and energy, and on up to evolving to us or whatever. Then that means that everything that happens in physical reality is just part of that domino effect, including the atoms that are moving around in your brain causing your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Now, if the atoms moving around in your brain are that cause your thoughts, you know what I'm saying? If that's all we are is physical matter, and those things go back to that domino effect, then you don't really have control over your thinking, which means that rationality, reason, goes out the window. And along with it goes out moral reasoning, scientific reasoning, deductive logic, and all the other things that we need to function in the world. So again, the person who doesn't take those things into account, either they don't realize how underdeveloped their worldview is, or they haven't really thought through it well enough to account for those kind of things. And these are just kind of red flags. Last thing I say about it, is and I do want to get back to the video, because there's one other thing I wanted to make sure that we got to. But at the end of the day, what we want to be doing is we want to be able to give pushback. You know what I'm saying? When somebody shows their hand that they haven't really thought through these things, we want to be right there to kind of help them, to not to beat them over the head with the truth, but to come alongside them and help them to reason about these things more rightly. So did you want to say something right quick? Or
no, I was gonna make a joke. Did you mean atoms or atoms?
The homophone fallacy had to get here. Right. Right. See, that's hilarious. The homophone fallacy at work. Oh man, shout out to BW. You know what I'm saying, with the super chat. Also had a super chat from I think it was Mythologic. So thank y'all for the super chats, man. Definitely much appreciated. Thank you. And actually, as we get to Q&A towards the end, we'll be going with the super chats first in terms of asking questions, and my minds will help me with that. You know what I mean? But again, don't let people get over on y'all, man. Like all the sophisticated sounding words and energies and vibes and all this kind of stuff. If you peel back the layers, he's relying upon assumptions about certain things that are real in the world that his worldview can't account for. And this is what I want to say. Let's say you take God out of the picture, and I think people can correct me if I'm wrong. Kevin Wesley might say something like, there may be no God, but the universe, everything is the universe, and some sort of pantheistic model. Now here's what's interesting. Depending on your perspective, many, I hesitate to say most, but it may even be most renditions of this kind of pantheistic perspective would say that our human experiences are in some sense illusory. I'm saying they're illusions. We're living in illusions. As a matter of fact, if anybody caught it, back when we did that breakdown with me, BK Apologetics, we did the breakdown of the Brother Jabari debate when he was debating Vince Bantu, and somebody asked him like what his worldview was, and he described pantheism. He talked about there's no difference between me and this table right here, and he just kind of goes on this thing about how everything is one. Well, if that's the case, if it really is true that this reality is an illusion, you don't really know which parts are illusion and which parts aren't. I'm saying the things that you believe to be true could just be part of the illusion, whereas reality itself might be something totally apart from what you believe to be the case. You're just subject to the illusion. You see what I'm saying? And so therefore, again, on what Alex said a minute ago, atheism leaves you in a situation where you can't really account for rationality. But in addition to that, if you want to take this kind of more pantheistic view, where our conscious isn't really discrete, it really isn't our own, it's subject to this, maybe broader or greater consciousness. You don't really know if you're having a conscious experience that's in line with reality or not. It could just be part of the big void. Matter of fact, like we talked about when we did that Soul breakdown, the movie The Soul. It could be just part of the big void, and you're just subject to the illusion and aren't aware of it, So I'm gonna play a couple more clips if you're cool with that, and then I think this will kind of run it on out. You cool with that?
Yep.
All right, cool.
So if you put your energy in something outside of you that you can see, you have now created an altar. When you don't need to go to an altar to see God, God is in here. God is with you all the time. You can heal yourself without having to go get a cross, a Quran, or anything. And so what happens is, the Bible now becomes some people's conduit to reach their inner self, which they call God. Through reading that book, they can feel hope and inspiration. Well, the same thing can happen when somebody read their Quran or their Bhagavad Gita or their Vistas, right? Because they believe so, and that's why it's all about faith. Notice this: if I give you a fake pill with sugar in it, a sugar pill, it can heal you. And the reason is you believe so strongly in the pill. Your faith is so strongly in that pill that you healed you. So the power of belief is absolutely amazing. If you strongly believe in Jesus, Jesus is real to you. Jesus is who you use to raise your consciousness. He makes you be a better person because you aspire to be him. You see what I'm saying? And this is like that with every other religion also. I learned this. And so after learning this, I said, can we all be better people without the use of conduits? You know what I mean? Can we channel the energy and the hope and the love inside ourselves without having to project that into anything? I don't have it on now, but there's an ankh, of course, that represents life and giving and receiving life. It represents the male and female. As the male gives her life, she receives it, and then she give it back in form of life, right? And a baby. Well, this is made up. Like that ankh is a made up symbol that's accepted to mean that, just so you can keep it in your mindset. But if I say I need this ankh in order to feel life, I've given my power to this material. I have the power. I created the ankh. The ankh never had power. I am who has the power. So we give our power to our creations, and then we can't move without them. And we do this with other people. Sometimes we fall in love, and you make people the conduit to love, when really you're love anyway. The reason that you love when you're around that person is because they help you connect with the side of yourself that is love. The same thing with hate or anything like that. You connect it with yourself. This is why you vibrate people that's like you to you. If you with somebody, they make you laugh and happy, you're really always happy. It's just sometimes you can focus in on the fact that you're depressed too and say, well, I'm depressed. Well, yes, you are depressed, but you're also happy. It depends on what aspect of yourself you focused on. And it takes things around us, outside of us, to help us channel the energies inside of us. Just imagine when you orgasm, you feel an amazing explosion of yourself. You don't feel nobody. You actually feel you. All these chemicals are you. So you feeling yourself, really. So now at that moment, you tap it into every emotion at the same time, right? The orgasm. Well, outside of orgasm or death, right? We can only feel some emotions at some times because our human body can only give us so many. And we tap into those emotions by the people that we're around, certain events that we channel in our mind, things we watch, and the judgments that we place on the world. And this is what helps us access the world. If I eat a grapefruit, I'm going to say the grapefruit is nasty, but really the grapefruit is good too. So if I say one thing is, if I create good, bad exists. If I create bad, good exists. So if I say it's bad, it's also good because grapefruit ain't just a grapefruit. If I put my mind to it, grapefruit is actually DNA. It's protein. It's data.
Yeah.
I gotta stop. I gotta stop right there. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna let you go first. Yeah, there's a couple things I want to say there, man. Go ahead.
No, okay. So, I don't. Wow. So here's a couple things. Somebody actually made one point in the comments that it's kind of self-refuting when you want to reference an ankh but deny every other symbol. But here's what I will say about any symbol. Well, I'll say with Christianity. I don't wear a cross, but if I did, I don't worship that cross on my neck. That's not what we're doing. We're simply referring back to a real thing. So now I want to come back to the fact that Christianity is propositional. So can you share my?
Yeah, gotcha.
So here's the thing. Wow. So
yeah, it was wild. It was pretty wild.
We should probably tell people we're going to do a part 2 because we can't get it all in.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen. I had a feeling, but we gave it a good shot. We had a good run.
Yeah, it's going to be
so just let me know if you want me to go to the next slide or what happened.
Go ahead.
The next slide, is that right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. And I dropped a video last night on why we can trust the words of Jesus, and there's lots of reasons, but I try to keep it short. So talking about the empty tomb, talking about the rise of early Christianity specifically. So if you just think about the fact that there were thousands of worshipers from Jerusalem to Rome prior to any text. So I've made this point to a lot of people, and even to atheists, and the logic of it is this, that even the ones he referenced, the Vedas and all these other religious books and stuff like that, the text creates the followers. The place where that's not true is Christianity. Now, we have access to the Bible, and as far as the date of when the event of the resurrection occurred and when the text was written, it's extremely early. It's the earliest really out of all antiquity, not just religious books.
Thanks.
So that's one thing it's greatly on the side of Christianity. It's very hard. It's impossible to say it's legend because it was within 2 decades. But even within those first 2 decades, Christians are dying for their belief in Jesus, not recanting. I interviewed Sean McDowell a couple of days ago, who did his dissertation on the fate of the apostles. And so you got to ask, what were they believing without a text? What were they willing to die for? See, if you remove the event of the resurrection, you can't explain or answer that question. And every other theory that has been used to try to explain it ends up affirming the empty tomb. They just do it poorly. So you talk about the swoon theory, displaced body, apparent death, whatever conspiracy, hallucination. All of that says the tomb is empty. We're just saying it's empty because of this. Well, those have been debunked. So I don't have to really debunk those any further. But I'll say this. Even this guy right here, Bart Ehrman, who is a well-known New Testament scholar, but he's an atheist or agnostic leaning towards atheism. And and I've met him and he's a nice guy, but he said, this is not an issue for scholars. I'm gonna skip down. Jesus is abundantly attested in early sources, early independent sources indicate that Jesus certainly existed. And you can see the rest of it there. He's not saying that Jesus never existed. Okay. And he is what we call a hostile witness. The reason courts let hostile witnesses testify is because they do so at their own demise. There's nothing they gain from that. Now, we won't be honest, the disciples had nothing to gain from making up a lie. And that was in the video from yesterday. But let's go to, I know we're short on time. Let's go to the next one. So this is Ger Ludeman, who's an atheist. He said Jesus' death as a consequence of crucifixion is indisputable. Atheist. Next one. This is John Dominic Crowson, who is over the Jesus seminar, which sounds really Christian, but is not. He said Jesus' death by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate is as sure as anything historical can ever be. If no follower of Jesus had ever written anything, if no follower of Jesus had written anything for 100 years after his crucifixion, we would still know about him. Like, think about that. So we're basing our belief, and the word faith is not blind. It means trust. And so we're basing our trust on certain facts. And this is what he and others are missing. So I think there might be one more, but if we think about those realities, okay, go past this. I already did this part. And this is C.S. Lewis. So I'm gonna end here. That if Christianity is based on propositions that are historically and archaeologically verifiable and verified, you're not saying that Jesus works for you and this Ankh works for me. You can't do that anymore, because now you're saying, it's like saying, well, your belief in the Civil War works for you, but it don't work for me. That's illogical. This is a certified fact of history. Now you have to decide what you do with that fact, but you can't deny the fact. C.S. Lewis, who called himself England's most reluctant convert, he said, I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. And this is a mere Christianity. He said, that's the one thing we must not say. He says, a man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level, where'd it go? On the level with the man who is a poached egg, or else he'd be the devil of hell. He's English, y'all. So you must make your choice. Either this man was and is the son of God, or else he is a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. This is part of what made him come to faith in Christ. You have 3 choices, right? The liar, lunatic, or Lord. And when you put those choices before somebody, if they want to call Jesus a liar, okay, but you got to back that up with facts. You want to say he's a crazy guy? Okay, you got to back that up with facts. Because if the resurrection is true, he's not crazy and he's not a liar. And so the third option is what you're left with. And that means you got to call him Lord. Now, people, they may not admit it, but some people have just a pure presupposition or predisposition against the idea of God. And some are open about it. Some atheists will tell you, I don't want there to be a God because I want to be free to do what I want to do. Cool. At least you're honest. I respect it. I don't agree, but I respect it. But you can't just deny absolute objective facts, pretend like they don't exist, and make up another worldview, and with no grounding. Like you can't you can't do that. That is a philosophically illogical method of coming to a complete and total worldview that is based in reality. It is an illusion, like you were talking about. So what he is saying, what Kevin Wesley is talking about, what a lot of these New Age people are talking about, it is an illusion. They are making up things as they go. It is not grounded in facts or history. And not only that, it objectively denies objective facts. When you get atheists and Christians agreeing on certain facts about Jesus, to the degree, I think I got one more. I'm going to show you just a list. I'm not even going to read the whole thing. A list of the things that we would know about Jesus from non-Christian writers within the first 75 years of his life. These are not, and this is, I mean, it's in the Bible, but these are not people from the Bible who wrote this. Jesus lived during time, had a virtuous life. They a wonder worker. They don't say miracle. Okay, who cares? All these things, fact, right? Nothing contradictory that we know about. One more slide. And then the darkness and the earthquake occurred when he died. Like, why would you even record that? His disciples believed he rose from the dead. His disciples were willing to die for it. Christianity spread to Rome, right? Like all these are facts that we know. We'll skip that one for next time, but these, you can take it off. These are facts that we know just from extra biblical sources.
And let me just say too, like, but when you say we, like, again, like we're not talking about like Christians. Okay. We're not saying that Christians believe that the things that were just on that list that we just showed a second ago, like this is what we believe about Christ. Like what scholars are saying is like, regardless of what your worldview is, atheist, Buddhist, Rastafarian, whatever you want to be, if we approach the historical record, you know what I'm saying, and evaluate the events that are reported about Jesus and his disciples and so forth, just on historical grounds, we can affirm those points have historical merit. Like those things happen as a matter of historical fact. Now, if you want to go on to, you know, whether or not Christ is Messiah, whether or not he's God, those are theological and philosophical questions and things of that nature. But in terms of that list right there that we just talked about, like, you know, this is not like a Christian thing. You know what I'm saying? Like this is what historians have to say about Jesus as a matter of historical fact. Let's just make that clear. You know what I'm saying?
Hold up. Did you go mute?
Oh, did I? Oh, my bad. Oh, my bad.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, my fault. Yeah, I was taking the thing off. Yeah.
So look, I'm gonna leave it there. The list of propositions, I could go on and on and on, and Adam could go on and on and on. And so, when, at least for me, like as an apologist, especially if I'm brought in to give a talk, I'm going to give a lot of external evidence, not because I'm disavowing Bible. I'm number one pro Bible teacher. That's how I started. That's what I still do. I still pastor a church. But there's a benefit to calling those hostile witnesses to the stand, so to speak. Right. Because when you can find cross worldview, I don't know if that's a term, cross worldview agreement.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing you can say about that. Unless you've never read any of it.
and to be honest, did we say it again?
I think that's the box he falls in. He's just he's not aware of any of this material.
Right. And this is not, listen, I'm not, y'all hear me out. I'm not trying to be mean spirited. I'm not making a statement about his mental capacity or anything like that. Okay. When I make this next statement, this man doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Yep. Right. I'm saying, just bear with me for a second, right? Let's just forget that I'm a Christian. Okay, let's just say, you know, I don't know who's watching this right now, but let's just forget about Adam Coleman and Alex being a Christian. Okay, if you disagree with Christianity wholeheartedly, let's just table that for a second. The man uses words in ways that that don't align with their definition to make his claims. That's a fallacy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's fallacious. This man says things that are self-contradictory. Okay, like the perfect example. You know what I'm saying? So, actually, let me take a step back for a second. Remember, I was talking about earlier how there are telltale signs about when somebody's worldview is underdeveloped. They really haven't thought through, you know what I'm saying, their worldview. And those telltale signs when they say things that they assume make sense, but really when you examine them, they don't stand up to scrutiny. An example would be, remember what he said a second ago, like kind of towards the end of the video. Now, he's talking about how, God is in you, right? and he's making these moral assumptions about how we need to love each other and hug each other. We can heal each other, man. Like it's a good thing that we heal each other and that we do all these kind of things, right? But at the same time, remember, God is out of the picture. And he says God is in you. There's nothing higher than, I'm saying, in his worldview, right? That's the highest it goes. Now, even if he wants to say, I'm going to steel man him. Steel man is when you try to improve somebody's position before you tear it down. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to steel man him. Let's say that when he says God is in you, he's going to expand that out and say, well, you are the universe, and so on and so forth. He's going to spiritualize it some. Even if that's the case, think about what he said there at the end. He said that, you are love, right? But then he also goes on to say that when you hate on somebody, you're hate too. And when you're interacting with somebody and you're happy, that's you. When you're interacting with somebody and you hate, that's you. When you're interacting with somebody and you feel depressed, that's you. So whether it be positive or negative, right? All these things are you, right? Now, here's the thing. If that's true, then the ultimate reality in his worldview is imperfect, right? Because you got both positive and negative. You got the good with the bad, right? You know what I'm saying? So if the ultimate worldview, if the ultimate reality in that worldview is morally flawed, I'll put it that way, okay, and has both this positive and negative aspect to it, then it can't be the case that ultimate reality is a solid foundation for objective morality. You know what I'm saying? Because you have the highest you can go. The buck stops with an immoral, you know what I'm saying, with a morally flawed entity, right? And so now you put yourself on shaky ground in terms of building a moral framework. So when you say things like, oh, well, it's good to hug people, I'm saying, and God is in you. All right, cool. Well, what if the God in me says I should shoot you in the face right now? You know what I'm saying? Or let's just take it back to what he said. He's talking about all religions are kind of like around the same. Okay, cool. So, Jesus is telling you to love your neighbor, right? Islam is telling you that if your neighbor doesn't, bow down to Allah and say the Shahada and so on and so forth, you can either murder them, you can either take their life or subject them to the jits attacks. I'm saying that they have to be subject to you. I'm saying, so clearly these religions ain't saying the same thing. But according to Kevin Wesley, it's all good because God is in the Muslim who's trying to subject us to Islam, and he's also in Jesus who says love everybody, right? Or is in me if I'm saying I'm trying to love everybody in Jesus' name. It's all the same, right? What if you have a religion that says you need, matter of fact, let's keep it up 100. You know what I'm saying? Like some worldviews in West Africa entail that you need to, if you run up on people who worship a different God, I'm saying you need to take them out. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't have to take them out, then then y'all are at odds in some sense or another. Let's just say it that way. There's some conflict there. You know what I mean? Like not all worldviews are buddy, love. It's not the case, right? And so, I mean, not only is he saying it's self-contradictory, I'm saying, because now he's removed the basis for these moral assumptions about loving people that he wants to hold, but it just doesn't align with reality because it's not the case that everybody is all love. Nah, bro. Study some world religions, my man. Study some world religion. So even if I'm not let's just say that, again, forget that I'm a Christian. The man is wrong, yo. You know what I'm saying? Like he's clearly teaching people. He's clearly not thinking well. You know what I'm saying? And nobody, regardless of your religion, regardless of your persuasion, if you come away from this never watching Adam Coleman again, I mean, look, just remember what I said. Just don't follow after people who can't think well. Just don't.
Amen to that.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, man.
It's funny as you said that because I was reading one of the comment sections one day and I just wrote this down. Somebody had said, they're trying to stick up for him. And they said, this man is a king and very handsome one at that. So haters and dream killers is on fire to bring him down. And then they said, praying for you, king. To who?
Right. Yeah. Who you praying to? Right.
Like right. People just say stuff and you don't even think about what you're saying. He said something in there in that last clip. He said, if there is no evil, there is no good, or vice versa, how he said it. Now that's true. Right. But he doesn't probably know it. That's part of the moral argument. But he missed the key of the moral argument, that there's a moral lawgiver on the basis. First of all, there's a moral law on the basis of which to differentiate between good and evil. But that requires a moral lawgiver because the moral law must come from a source that transcends those who are governed by it. And so it can't come from us. Otherwise, it remains subjective. And so if you say the universe is impersonal. Impersonal forces don't make laws, at least not moral laws. So we're stuck again. Once again, everything is like they say, with your feet firmly planted in midair.
Facts.
What are you
Facts.
standing on?
Right.
What are you standing on? And so that's where I land.
Yeah, shout out to Troy Goss, man, for the super chat. Much appreciated. We're gonna take if you're cool with it, we'll take a couple minutes of questions. If you want us to clarify anything, maybe 5 or so minutes. So if you have any questions, go ahead, put them in the chat. We'll start with the super chats first, and then we'll just kind of work our way through some of the questions that we can tackle. If what's the best way to do it? Well, we'll just go with that. See where we end up. But while y'all are putting the questions in the chat, I want to say something. I wanted to come back to that point as well about the good and the bad, because what he said was that he's using the analogy of the grapefruit, and he says something like, if you create good, then that means that bad exists. And then he said, well, if bad exists, then it also means that good exists. Now, again, that's a telltale sign of somebody who hasn't thought through these things very well. I'm saying now it is the case that we'll put it this way. All right, so kind of add some philosophical language. We can talk about bad or evil as being a privation of good. Okay. Now, in scientific terms, when you look at any physics book will tell you, coldness, the reality of coldness is the absence of heat, Okay. Darkness isn't something in and of itself. Right. It's the absence of light. And likewise, okay, bad or evil, I would say evil, is the absence of good. It's not something in and of itself. So therefore, on the one hand, it is the case that if you have evil or badness, then that is indicative that some sort of good exists, as you were talking about, because badness has to be it diverges from something. It's the absence of something, the absence of goodness, right? I'm saying so. It is the case that if you have badness, then that's an indicator that you have goodness. But the claims that he made, or I'll just use the term, are asymmetric. I'm saying in the sense that even though it is true that if you have badness or evil in the world, then that's indicative of there being goodness. It's not true that if you have goodness in the world, then badness necessarily exists. I'm saying, because you can have light without darkness. You can't have darkness without light, but you can't have light without darkness. I'm saying God being the foundation, the very essence, what it means to be good. I'm saying, we would hold from a biblical standpoint existed from eternity past. Has always existed with no evil in them and so on and so forth. But with the creation of beings who have, the capacity to do evil, now you have a scenario within which there's a possibility that evil can be brought about. I'm saying, through the cause of those other beings exercising their will. Now, but aside from that, either way, just kind of give a difference in perspective in terms of where he's coming from in the biblical worldview. But regardless of that, even if you don't buy any of that about the biblical worldview, it's still the case that you can have light without having darkness. You can have good without having bad, conceptually speaking. This is not just a Christian talking. I'm talking about those who read moral philosophy. I'm saying will understand where I'm coming from, because this is in the philosophical literature, whether you be atheist or whatever else. But my whole point is, this dude, clearly he hasn't studied. I'm saying he hasn't done his homework, which takes me back to, his initial claim that he was making when he's talking about like all we have, or all we all do is give our testimony, and that's it. And you can't, evaluate one worldview as being over another, because, they kind of end up in the same boat with that one. Again, we're dealing with somebody who doesn't know his stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to dip out on the biblical worldview because you ain't do your homework. You know what I'm saying? That like you not doing your homework is no reflection of Christianity itself. It just means you ain't doing your homework. That's all that means. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, man, yeah, I'm going in, man. But anybody got any questions in the chat? I haven't seen any thus far. My mind's helped me out. If I've missed any, just definitely go ahead and post them down there. But as we're kind of waiting for some questions, did you want to say something or talk about stuff you got coming up or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, but let me just say this, because we do definitely have to do part 2 now, mostly because there's one very, very important thing we didn't even get to address. And I don't know if anybody's following him. He's now come out as polygamous. He has 2 wives, even though it's not legal. And this is why when at the very beginning of the show, I was like, it always comes down to money or sex. And like usually you leave the church, quote unquote, it's because you want to be able to validate what you already want to do. And you just got to figure out a way to do it. And so he's come up with this whole clever theology, this whole clever language to now it's okay. Like this is just how I raise my energy. And this is just all the stuff but this was the end game, I believe. And so, Oh Lord, Chad, we ain't gonna do that tonight.
So, dog, I'm getting you in trouble, man. They try to spark it off, man. You don't have to answer. It's up to you, man. I don't know what that's. It
Hit
sounds like
me
there's some history
offline,
there.
man.
It sounds like there's some history there. So I'm just messing with you.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
We'll do a whole thing on that. But anyway,
right.
So that's kind of how people go, and it's not just him. I hear a lot of people that they have issues with the church, or they don't want to. I don't know. Is that on my end or your end?
Oh, that was my kids in the back. My fault, bro. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
I forgot to mute myself. My bad.
It's all good. Yeah. So that's a lot of times where it comes down. So we have to do a whole separate thing just on that, because we had to take this much time just to expose the logical inconsistencies and incongruencies in what he's saying and what a lot of people are saying. But here's the most troubling thing. And once again, this is why we do this. It's not to bash him. I was telling somebody earlier today, there's always one crazy guy saying something. Like, that don't bother me. I mean, we just had 4 years of that. So that's another story. Anyway,
issue, snap, just cost me like 1,000 subscribers right there, man. Oh, come on. No.
But regardless of how, my issue is always the people that follow these people, especially when it comes to Jesus and Christianity, because this is now bigger than just, I don't agree with you. Now you got people that you're actively leading to hell, basically. And that's a problem for me as a pastor, as a Christian in general. So that's the reason for me, at least, we want to expose the inconsistency of the things that he's saying, because if he ain't doing the homework, I'm promise you his followers ain't doing the homework. So
that's facts. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's really true. And again, man, like, this is not like a we hate Kevin Wesley thing. Like, this is not a bad. Like, I'm just saying, come on, y'all. You know what I'm saying? If you're right is right, is wrong is wrong. You know, simple as that. You know what I'm saying? If somebody hops on their live and shows me where I was mistaken on something, then I got to take that L. I got to be like, oh, dang, they got me. That's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so, this is not personal, you know what I mean? But nevertheless, like, these things have to be talked about. Like, listen, man, again, on an eternal level, these things have eternal implications. You know what I'm saying? That's number one. You know what I'm saying? If you get the Jesus question wrong, in terms of who he is, what he did, and what he was about, the kingdom, so on and so forth. If you get the gospel wrong, then there are eternal implications. It's not, you don't want to stand before God and have to give an account for that. So eternally it matters, but it also matters right here, right now. You can't build a strong community on the foundation of bad ideas, of weak ideas. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be thinking well, fam. You know what I'm saying? And quite frankly, man, I promise you, I'm gonna have to get off because I'm about to just go on a whole another rant. But I mean, dog, you can look up. You got a bunch of these pseudo-scholars out here, man, just talking nonsense and getting thousands upon thousands of views. And we turn around and wonder why the Black community is still struggling. I'm saying I love the Black community, man, and I want to see us do better. But in order for us to do better, we need to start being more discerning about the types of things that we imbibe, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We got to do better, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just frustrating, seeing folks just perpetuating lies, just falsehoods and all kind of illogical shenanigans. I mean, and we taking that in, man. We got to do better, y'all. We got to do better, but so this is not this is about just evaluate the evidence. You know what I'm saying, follow the evidence where it leads. I said on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, your Christians should never be afraid to follow the evidence where it leads. And when you just break down with things like Kevin Wesley and people like him are saying, the evidence shows us that these folks are in error. I'm saying they're in error in regards to the claims that they're making. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. So, but yeah, man, I'm not really seeing any questions come in, bro. I guess either we did real good or real bad, one or the other. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? But I just want to refer people to your work. I'm saying you do an excellent job breaking down things, not only in terms of scripture, you know what I'm saying, but also just evidences for the biblical worldview. I talked earlier about the various different arguments that we have that support the Christian case that we're making. And I mean, y'all can find that on my channel as well. But definitely, I refer anybody to Alex Mcelroy. So yeah, give me your channel, man. Let them know where they can find you at, bro. Yeah,
it is. Somebody just put it in there. So Relentless Pursuit of Purpose. But you can just type my name, Alex Mcelroy. It'll come up that same way. Probably easier, actually. I'm starting to do a lot more content. I'm getting better at editing. So I learn from the best. But
I don't know. I don't know who that is. It ain't me. I mean, I'm trying to do better myself.
Yeah, drop the. I'm trying to drop at least one video, do one interview a week. You know, just give that. And when I say interviews, there's a lot of Apologetics is a small world, and so if I don't know them, it's like 1 degree away. So I'm just trying to reach out to some people who I think can be a benefit to everybody, expose the world to these voices like Hugh Ross, who's world-renowned astrophysicist, and whoever asked that young old, just go watch that live and let him answer. Okay. I ain't gonna even touch it right now.
Okay.
But the last thing I'll say here tonight is, and you kind of touched on it, Adam. So you say be the evolution, and you talk about morality, and I did a video, but it wasn't specifically about this, but it was our atheist modern day Epicureans. So you can find that on my channel as well. Mm-hmm. But within it, one problem, because there's I don't even want to pull them all down. So there's Baggett and Walls do a lot of work on morality, but there's really 4 issues within the substrata of the moral argument, and one of those is moral transformation. So I wrote a piece on it. I think it's published on if you know Frank Turk cross-examine. Sure. I guess right for their blog sometimes. And the thing with this is from what to what. Like this is another piece that people miss. So like you said, Adam, there's this prior state I'm not supposed to be, and there's a state I'm supposed to be. But when you don't have a telos, when you don't have a purpose or a goal, or when it's undefined, you don't even know if you're getting closer or further. So you could be evolving or be the evolution towards this direction, but what if that's the wrong direction? And then you don't know if it's the right direction or wrong direction because you don't have nothing to go towards. There's a reason that a football field has an end zone, right? There's a reason that a basketball court has a hoop on each side, because there's a target that I'm trying to get to. If you remove the end zone, if you remove the hoop, who's going to watch that?
His dude dribbling back and forth, just up and down the court. Yeah.
Like moral transformation can only take place. I can only be the evolution, if you want to call it that, if I know what I'm going towards. If there's a telos in place, and the scriptures give us that, God gives us that as an ontic point of reference, and so we're becoming Christ-like. Well, how do we know who Christ? Well, now we go read, now we go study, now we go figure out what that looks like, and then we ask the Holy Spirit to help us become that. But when you're just saying, just be the evolution, which way? Like you go left, I go right. Like how are we doing this? You know what I'm saying? And so this new age stuff, it leaves you in limbo, and it sounds liberating, but you find it's not. Like I talk to people, and some people reach out and they veered in that direction, and they want to come back because they're like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing out here. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just doing stuff. And that's how it is. How else could it be realistically? So I'll leave it there.
Right. Good. Actually, somebody asked, oh man, I just lost. Oh, thank you. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it. Hercules, maybe. The chocolate shake. Thank you for the super chat. Forgive me if I messed that up. But somebody did ask the question. The brother asked, where am I here? Okay. Any good moral philosophy books that any of you can suggest? And actually, you just referenced one by David Baggett and Jerry Walls called "Good God."
That's
good. That's good. No, it's very interesting. And this is free game right here. Free game. So when we talk about the moral argument, for guys. Oh, okay. You want to show them that right quick?
I'll just show a couple. These are. I don't know if you can see that. God and Cosmos by Baggett and Walls. Good God by Baggett and Walls. Let me see what else I got. Go ahead, Adam. I'll find some more.
Oh, it's cool. Actually, I was looking for something anyway while you were doing that.
There's more.
Give me 1 second.
What's the question on moral philosophy? If you haven't read Mere Christianity, like start there. You gotta read that.
Actually, I'm gonna take this from underneath. You can see how bootleg I am. Propping up my computer with this here. But On Guard. You just got a chapter in here on moral. On the moral argument. Now, I said the moral argument, but it's important to note that there are different versions. We talk about moral philosophy. As a matter of fact, I'll go back to that in a second. So if you really want to get in the nitty gritty, you can deal with Robert Adams, where he's got this book called Finite and Infinite Goods. I think that one's like, if you want to take like a super deep dive, that's when you're talking about moral philosophy in general. You know what I'm saying? Where you're talking about the ins and outs from A to Z, everything you want to know about building a okay, there you go.
That's Adams right here.
Okay, Robert. Okay, cool. So if you want to talk about, a full framework, a moral framework, you know what I'm saying, you just want to develop that, then you deal with Robert Adams. Eleanor Stump has some great work out there. But one thing I want to say that there's, just so people know, there's different forms of the moral argument. I'm saying the moral argument, but there's various different ones. So as where a typical one that you're going to find is, the William Lane Craig, it's kind of popularized it. Maybe you might call it the standard one, where it's like God does not exist and objective moral values and duties do not exist. Objective moral values and duties do exist, therefore God exists. That's kind of like an easy, quick version that's very popular. But David Baggett and Jerry Walls that we mentioned a second ago with Good God, they take what's called an inductive approach to the moral argument. So what I just gave from Craig is deductive, and they take an inductive approach where they deal with different aspects of the moral experience. And when they kind of put them before you, the idea is that the best account, for why we have these different various facets of the moral experience is that there's a God to ground morality, moral obligations, moral reasoning and things like that.
I would even say it's more abductive, but they're very.
I said inductive. Yeah, excuse me. I'm sorry. I think that is fair to say abductive. I apologize. Yeah.
So this one, this is Feinberg. Now, so he kind of does that too, where he has a position, but he spends like 90% of the book outlining every other position. Because here's the reality: there's really 8 problems of evil, if you want to call it that, and we don't have time to do that. But anyway, if you really get deep into that, there's when people say the problem of evil, you got to ask which one, if you're prepared to do that at least. And so this is a good catch-all because it deals with a lot of this one and this problem of evil and this person's take on it, and just trying to get an understanding of those things. But look, this goes back to Irenaeus, Tertullian, Augustine. Like, this is not a new debate by any means, and it's not a settled debate. But here's what I think is settled, at least within Christianity, is that C.S. Lewis said it like this: the shadow proves the sunshine. So, like you said, you can have a light with no shadow, but you can never have a shadow with no light. And so evil, I say evil is good gone bad. It is like rotten milk. You had milk, but the milk went bad. So it's not like you said, Adam, it's not a thing in and of itself. I like the example Frank Turk uses, that if you have a car and the car begins to rust, you could take the rust out of the car, you got a better car, but you can never take the car out of the rust. Then you have nothing.
Right. Very true. Yep. You
got to start with the objective.
And actually, real quick, we did get a couple questions, so I'm gonna knock these out, then we'll get on out of here. But Hercules, the chocolate sheik, said, "Am I wrong, or is black wokeness in quotation marks just an emotional appeal Black folks disdain for being hoodwinked by the white man yet again?" Well, I mean, my response to that might be different from others, but the term woke or wokeness can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think that if you trace it back, to notions of like knowledge of self and things of that nature, going back, really have really been around in the Black community for quite some time. If you understand it through that lens, which I think is probably a more historically respectable way to do it, contextually respectable as well. If you understand it through that lens, then I would say that what people are referring to as wokeness, or maybe I can say mere wokeness, if you will, I think it's just a reflection of people grappling with the problem of evil. I think that in the African American context, the problem of evil most often takes the form of the struggle between a particular people group, African Americans, and structures of power, white supremacy, and suffering that and oppression that goes along with that. And so, as you have different people of different stripes trying to wrestle with this issue, some of them come to various different conclusions. But on the most basic level, I think that wokeness for most people, what they mean in the African American context, I think that they're referring to having an awareness of who you are, your ethnic and cultural heritage, as well as the pressures that are against you, given who you are ethnically, racially, or whatever, and so on. So in terms of it just being an emotional appeal, I think that based upon the kinds of oppressions and things of that nature that I just mentioned, I think that based upon that, people make emotional appeals. But I think the kind of underlying foundation to that is still some level of wrestling with the problem of evil. You want to take a stab at that, or you want me to just hit this last question? Or
Nah, I mean that's great. I think yeah, you covered it, and we can cover that a lot in different ways, but I think that's right. I saw Mythologic, I think. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can toss this to you. In my recent video on intolerance, I suggested that as atheists struggle to fill the God-sized void in their worldview, they tend to become nihilists, hedonists, or political extremists. Thoughts? I'll let you take that one.
I agree. So it doesn't always happen, because I know many atheists who are not that way, but even Friedrich Nietzsche realized that this was a logical conclusion. Even somebody like Dawkins realizes that his worldview cannot sustain objective moral truths and duties. And so he simply disavowed the idea of morality. I have a quote, I can't pull it up right now. And it says, was what the Nazis did wrong? That's truly a difficult question. Quotes. Is it? But here's the thing. He's being honest with his worldview, because he's realizing, I don't want to disavow atheism, but I also see the reality that I can't make a firm foundational objective case for it. Now, some have tried, like Sam Harris has done a lot of work on this. I believe he's failed in that regard, but at least he's being thoughtful about that. But then you got somebody like Peter Singer who advocates stuff of abortion post-pregnancy, which is not abortion, that's murder. Which all of it is to a large degree. So this is kind of where you go. But in The Madman by Nietzsche, he says, well, there is no more up or down. There is no more. Once you remove all the boundaries, you think it's freedom, but it's not freedom. This book by Abdu Murray called Saving Truth, he talks about, the difference between freedom and autonomy, and sacrificing on the burnt altar of autonomy.
Yeah, it's facts. Yeah.
And this is the way the world is going right now, that you think you're being more tolerant, you think you're being more liberating by removing all boundaries and just let me do what I want to do. And this is my body. And this is that's your truth. This is my truth. And that sounds real fluffy and nice, and it sounds congenial, but it's not. It is the goal is not to have no boundaries. The goal is to have the proper boundaries. Christianity, God, the framework that he's established gives us those boundaries. Like, once again, the basketball game. I love this thing about Vince Vitale. He does that in the book. And so if you think about a football game, why is it exciting when the receiver makes a toe tapping catch on the sideline? Because he almost went out of bounds. But if you remove the boundaries, the game is not fun anymore. And I'm not saying life is a game. I'm saying that there are objective boundaries that serve to our good, that make life more pleasurable, not less. And this is the truth of Christianity that Kevin Wesley missed, that we need to know, and that I, as a pastor, try to espouse. That, yeah, it's not to look at Christianity as a rule, as a list of don'ts or can'ts. It's to look at it as a list of what I get freely through no goodness of my own, and the relationship I get freely with the God of the universe, the relationships that I can build in with other people. We can talk all the ecclesiology later, but I'm just trying to say that if we don't have a way of communicating a robust understanding of what's really in the package deal of coming to faith in Christ, then of course people are going to veer off into these other things because they feel trapped. And this is not a worldview that traps you. This is a worldview that liberates you eternally. So there's more to say on that, but I would say I definitely see a lot of people veer into those things because they feel free to do so now. And the nihilistic one is the one that really bugs me, because this is where depression, the rise in depression, the rise in suicide, the rise in what is it all about? There is no purpose to life. When you come to that conclusion that there is no purpose to life, I get wanting to bow out. I don't affirm it. Let me just be clear. But I get why somebody might think like that.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to Black Atheists in the building. Haven't seen you in a while, brother. Glad to have you, man. Glad to have you. You know what I'm saying? Got another super chat that we going to dip out, but Troy Gauss says, shout out to Pastor Troy Gauss, by the way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, definitely putting in that work out there, man. Shout out to him. He says, I love Nietzsche's parable of the madman. Break it down. Yeah, I wish I had time to really get into it. You know what I mean? But it actually kind of piggybacks on what you were just saying, Alex. about, taking God out of the picture. You know what I'm saying? Nietzsche, writes his whole passage of, it's kind of like I think it's fair to call it an allegory, whereas this guy who's a madman, and the whole thing represents, the absence of God. He's saying, we've killed God. God is dead. And he talks about, well, where are we going to, there's no up or down. There's no, this it's darkness all the time. And he basically kind of is describing this kind of despair and how everything is all topsy-turvy because there's no God to center, the worldview, the world around, if you will. And, I think what he had in mind is like, really what he describes that goes on later on in the 20th century with the Holocaust and all the world wars and all these kind of things. You take God out of the picture, there's disastrous results because you remove, it's like pulling the rug from under morality and the moral obligations that we have to one another, and it becomes a free-for-all where power becomes the highest ethic. You know what I'm saying? And so I think
by the way, Hitler was an avid reader of him, and he delivered a copy to Stalin.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's deep. And so, you see how they got down, you know what I mean? But I'll bring it back to Kevin Wesley though, right? Because again, he's saying that you're God, right? And so, God, in terms of a transcendent God, at least in a monotheistic sense, you take, God out of the picture, he's saying that you're God. So kind of going back to what you're saying earlier, like if I'm God, let's say if you're God and you feel like, man, I think it's what I want to do is save as many children from homelessness as possible. And I'm God too, right? And I say, well, you know what? All those children that Alex saves from homelessness, I'm going to break in those homes and kill them all. You know what I'm saying? If there's no transcendent, if you can't give a coherent account of morality that corresponds to reality, and I'm God, he's God, then really there's no right or wrong between us. We're on equal footing. Your cause is no more moral than mine, right? I'm not any less than you. Hitler and Mother Teresa are on equal footing. You see what I'm saying? If you take that out of the picture, you know what I mean? So, I said it to say, one of the ways that you want to evaluate a worldview is you want to ask the question is, can you live it out consistently? You know what I'm saying? And so I like to, think about like, you want to test drive it a little bit. Somebody has presented me their worldview. I want to hop in the car and I want to drive it a little bit. Right. And I'm going to show you how when you run into these red flags of your worldview where things don't fit together well, it's like driving into the ditch. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I'm doing right now by giving an example. If we just accept your worldview and then we look at how that really plays out in real life, you can't live that consistently. You know what I'm saying? You're presupposing that it's right to love people, hug folks and heal them and all that kind of stuff that we talked about. But on your worldview, somebody could do the exact opposite and you would just have to say, well, all religions are the same. And, the God in you're tapping into the conduit of that hate that you are, because I'm love and you're love, but you're also hate and I'm hate too. So whichever part that you're manifesting, that's what it is. That's who you are. Right. So, you know what I mean? Like, these are the kind of things where it just begins to fall apart, man. But hey, man, we're going to get on up out of here, man. I appreciate y'all for coming through. Alex, what you got coming up next, man? What you got coming up on your channel?
Oh, man. I got a video. I should be done editing. I'm going to try to drop it Monday. I'm going to do kind of my Black History Month breakdown. It's going to be real short. So I know attention spans, but I want to kind of highlight some of the Black theologians that got us where we are. And when I say us, I don't mean Black people. I mean Christianity. Because, when we bifurcated it, it's like, oh, that's the Black people. No, these brothers, we all quote. We all quote Tertullian and Augustine and other ones. And so, I just want to highlight that. And I got a couple talks / interviews coming up. I ain't gonna say the name. I'm gonna wait to drop.
Okay.
But
oh man, you gonna do us like that, man?
Yeah, stay tuned, man.
That's dope. Well, yeah, I'm glad you came by, man. Glad you stopped in and dropped some gems with us, man. Also, yeah, you mentioned Black history. Each week, I it's funny. I started a series last week where I'm trying to highlight, different African Americans and Africans, continental Africans who make philosophical contributions, or we can draw some philosophical points from them. I'm trying to highlight that throughout Black History Month. And I started last week. I was supposed to be doing another one today, but I double booked myself by accident. So what I'm going to do, y'all, is double up next week. I'm going to try to double up next week and, drop 2 of those next week, 2 live streams on that topic. And we'll get it in like that, man. I got much more to come. So appreciate y'all. Make sure you subscribe to my man, Alex Mcelroy's channel. He's got a lot of dope content. Hit him up on Facebook, the whole 9. Thank you to the mods in the chat. I'm saying thank you to everybody that came through. Love y'all. And remember, love God, love people, and take care of the things that God blesses you with.
Amen.
Peace.